Welcome to Midlife Catalyst, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories. I'm Amanda Yantz, and I'm grateful that you're here. Today, we pick up where we left off with part 2 of my conversation with Tami Shaw, learning and training developer. We dive deep into limiting beliefs, those inner voices that run through our head that hold us back from moving forward, the shoulds, and share deeply vulnerable conversations about how and where to find community and to share radically simple ideas. Some exciting news by this weekend. Tammy's book, Radically Simple Training, will be available on Amazon. If you enjoy what Tammy has to say, be sure and go out and purchase her book. Thank you for listening. Talk about what you're learning, because I always get so much from what you're reading, what you're listening to, what workshop you're going to.
The book comes out in a couple of weeks, and so climbing that mountain has been a little bit all-consuming, and I have come to appreciate how our capacity is real. You can't, I don't listen to anything on my way to and from work, and normally that's an audiobook or a podcast that's filling me up and I'm learning things. And so even just remembering that not everybody is in a season where they have extra mental space for that thing, and that's okay, has been a sweet reminder. I have been really appreciating the value of community over the last few months. I was just in Arizona visiting family, and being together, we all really enjoy each other and love each other, but just the conversations that you have with real people are different than the ones we have online. And our ability to be vulnerable and say, like, this is really hard. What do you think is different than online? Pockets with family and friends have done that. Local trainer groups supporting each other. I've been shocked at how generous the training community is with wanting to learn from each other. It's not like we're all, punching out for, we want that client, get out of our way. Everybody's I might not be the right fit for them. You might be. I don't love to do, like, spoke to somebody last week. They said, I don't really love core values and like executive strategic planning. And I was like, oh, please, like, I'll take it. But there are things I don't love to do. Like, we want a huge emotional intelligence workshop. Can I have my own version of that, but I don't really love their structure. So, like, that's not right for me, but I can give you 2 new people. So being in community that doesn't see it as a competition, but see this as like we're serving complementary with our strengths, that has been a huge blessing with the community. And then even Working Genius, the certified facilitators group, is the reason to get certified. There's so many people there sharing ideas and saying, this failed, how would I do it differently next time? Yeah, I think that's been my biggest learning. Is more of a reminder lately that I can be tempted to go alone and like lock in and focus on my project and strive for excellence the way I want to do things. And maybe there's some strength in that, but something is lost if I'm doing things alone.
Yes.
You're part of that for me. This was our first podcast episode, but just coffee and lunches and conversations where we're bouncing ideas off of each other. It's a real conversation. That's such a blessing.
Well, and it lights me up, when you think about what are the things that refuel you or fill your bucket, because it is hard work and it can be draining, and you are in that creative process. I actually had a conversation about this morning in my writing accountability group of it can be such a mind drain because I'm doing nonfiction work and some memoir. So when you're bringing up your own experiences, or you're pouring 6 months of every waking hour you have outside of work into something,
Yeah,
it just mentally drains you. And so finding the right community, that's what I think is so critical, is not just a community to say you have it, but the right community where you can be vulnerable and people reciprocate that level of understanding and empathy of, yeah, I get it. I mean, I get that no podcast there, and people think, oh my gosh, you were in the car and you went dead silence. And I'm like, I would do that every Friday for me for 3 years of leaving work. Need silence for 2 hours, of that kind of recharge. So
and
it's
it, for
important.
me, it refueled just my heart for things to be radically simple. Is when somebody's in that season, if they can have the 5-minute nugget that actually helps instead of it. Like, it doesn't have to be the 2 hours. So the book, already planning the second one with my husband, all about reach question, and probably the third one in the series about empathy and like the AD stories and that concept. But if you can't pick it up and like read it for 1 second while you're in the bathroom and get a new strategy, then it's missed the mark for me. That doesn't mean there isn't a place for beautiful other things, but not just being in one of those seasons where I'm driving. I have no capacity left, but I still want to get better. I want to serve people who are in that space who want to get better fast, but are short on time or load or cognitive load.
I won't say we, because I'll just say me, tend to want to overcomplicate things. That is the world of consumerism, and a lot of things work, whereas there are very cheap and easy solutions that sometimes we gloss right over because we're thinking there's a big thing when it might be a simple, easy thing to try and implement and make our lives easier.
Example with training. So this book is Radically Simple Training and just strategies and tips for trainer. And you never read any of the strategies, but what you got was plan your thought-provoking questions, ask them, and give people space. Like, if that's all you did was that, you'd probably be a way better trainer. But then maybe where you're at, if you had even more strategy in your toolkit. So sometimes it is that simple. One little thing. What I really want them to know, and what question can I ask, so that they own and embrace and wrestle with that.
I love that.
Just
Because again,
an
it's
example
not a
comes to mind.
QR code or lights or this song or interactive things. What a thought.
What about for you? Do you have a radically simple strategy or life hack? Not even training, but just like, for me, it's drink more water. Like, this is the simple thing. People are looking for a magic wand, and this is it.
This is why I have to talk to you. No, I make nothing simple. Yeah, no, I overcomplicate everything. I've got nothing there.
Okay.
I
Food
need
for pondering.
I need to work on this. It was one of my goals going into my writing group because I have my journal, then I have Word docs, then I have drafts and Substack, then I have Scrivener, which is my actual book writing platform. It's like, I need this just in one place. We're like tripling the work here.
Part of me wonders if that is a first-time author's journey, because I was the same. Like, I had a post-it note mirrors in our house for a year and multiple Google Docs and journals. And, I think a brainstorm is that it's a storm. And so some of that, I just wonder if that's part of the journey. The book that's come out for me is so different from yours, right? Like, it's practical tips, and yours is heartfelt stories filled with wisdom and insight, and that memoir piece of it. So I think that journey is different too. But I wonder if both of us at the other's book will think, no, I write it in this Google Doc and this is how this works. But I'm going to put these things on Post-its because we understand the framework better. But kind of had to be a storm at first.
I appreciate that reframing when I'm like, no, I'm just a mess. I got things everywhere.
No, I think you're a creative, and it's part of the process.
This has helped simplify a bit is Buffer, which is another app, but it's helped house content. It's almost like, I think, when we had Google Keep, which never really worked for me, but okay.
I know people that love it. It's great for them, but not
right.
for me.
Not for me. But you kind of have thought boards. And so I can leave ideas there, quotes or links. So it's all in one house that I can then go back to and plan. If I want to put content out, I can plan a week or a month's worth of that has helped me. I've got to get better. But I mean, I'm not that far in, but it's helped me see the bigger picture and simplify. So it's been a pretty helpful tool. My problem is, before I get to the board, I've already gone down another rabbit hole and have another idea, right? That's the inventor.
Your eye and working genius.
Yes, I'm already down somewhere else, and it's like, stick to the board. You've got 6 idea boards. Stick with those. That's been helpful.
I know that's the phase you're in. You're like, I'm just adding ideas, and it's okay that I'm not going to pursue all of them. Working genius language, like, I know that I enjoy coming up with ideas. I'm not going to discern and implement all of them.
I need to back off a little bit. So your book Can you say the title? Did you decide on a title?
I'm not committed to the subtitle yet, but the friend just today who DM'd me was like, have you thought about, I originally had the Radically Simple Guide to Exceptional Training, and my plan was to reuse the Radically Simple Guide to Reusable Questions, the Radically Simple Guide to Empathy, all these. And her message to me was, great, have you thought about making it just Radically Simple? Like that is the title, because that's part of the brand. And I was like, that's so much more simple. So the title will be Radically Simple Training. And then the subtitle is something along the lines of Mindsets and Reusable Strategies for Exceptional Trainers. But yeah, Radically Simple Training can get on Amazon in about 2 weeks.
That's so exciting. And just in time, I have 2 big presentations in April. So I'm going to get this book and then I'll have
Perfect.
exceptional training in April.
I think you are already an exceptional trainer. There just might be a gem or two in it, but yeah.
I've I've learned. One of my favorite things that you taught was not to lead with your bio, which
my pet peeve.
It's same. I was never great about it anyway because I don't like talking about myself. It's even like on this podcast intro, you're supposed to give your bio. I'm like, I don't want to tell people my bio.
True. Let me tell you about Amanda.
The icebreakers, because I hate icebreakers. I hate them. We talk about this. Well, it was my second podcast episode with my friend Meg, and we're opposites. I'm an introvert. She's extrovert, outgoing, and how I don't do small talk. I don't want to do icebreakers because I don't care about your cat. You know, whatever. Give me what's your favorite book and why do you like that book? And those kind of questions, or a song. And then know why the song is important to you, not just a trending song, but like, okay, this is actually why, because of this lyric. So I just dig right in to things, and you have powerful ideas and strategies to get people talking. And I think you talk the layers of vulnerabilities, which is a key tenet of my work in this show. So talk about that.
So Association for Talent Development is an international organization. I have a breakout session at their conference this year in May in DC, and it is Ditch the Icebreakers. And so I'm excited I get to facilitate that experience for people. And I got the new kids slot, right? This is my first time presenting for them. And so I am Sunday evening, and Sunday is it's sort of a conference day, but it's also a travel day for people. So I'm like, I might have 2 whole people, but I'm still very excited. So facilitating that. And then in the book, Start Strong is one of the strategies chapters. And some of those pro tips are don't start with your resume. You don't need your giant picture on screen. That means the session is about you. And you're already the one who gets the mic and is going to stand up at the front. They don't need that. They need an interesting, thought-provoking question. They need something to tell their neighbor. They need something to do, or just clarity about what the session is. So that's a whole chapter in the book, but my philosophy is that every minute counts for your learning, but you still want people to be connected to each other. So your icebreaker, for the sake of only building community, if you've got a multi-day event, that's different because you need people to be connected and you're really building relationships. But when you're talking about a half-day workshop for 100 people or even a full day, they're not going to meet their best friend and learn life stories. They're there for kind of a specific learning. So however you open should spark their brains for that learning and give them an opportunity to connect with people at their table. So sometimes that's just a question what are you excited to learn about today? Or what are you hesitant about with this workshop, right? And give them some space to talk about that. And if they naturally end up finishing that conversation quick and somebody tells their cat story, that's great.
Right.
But you don't need to play bingo to figure out who has a cat for the first 15 minutes of the workshop, nor do you need to read them your resume to sound credible. Because if you are credible, you don't need that affirmation, and you will organically build your credibility through the workshop by saying, I've had a similar experience with that. Let me tell you a real quick story about a strategy that I know has worked for somebody else. Tell me more about your experience. As you draw other people out, they see your confidence and your competence. And so you don't need to reach your resume to be credible, and you don't need to do silly things that drive half of your participants to mad.
One of my other pet peeves of late, because I've seen it on multiple calls, and I'll just log out. I just turn it off and log off,
Oh, I'm
especially if
so
it's
excited. What is
not
it?
something that I paid for. When you're in a Zoom or a workshop and they give you one thought-provoking question, okay, this is great, I've read about it. And then you go to breakout rooms to talk about it. And I'm like, I didn't come here to talk about what I know. I came here to get some nugget of information. So it's like, you don't really have the information. You're just facilitating us talking about the information and sharing, which in some spaces, that's fine. Like the writing space, that's what we were looking for in accountability partners, but not in an actual training. I had someone the other day that made a great distinction between training and facilitating. And when you're making your offers or pitching to work with leaders or organizations, to know and understand the difference and clearly present that.
I find there's this gray area that's both, and great training has facilitation in it. If I'm training and I'm the only one talking, then I'm actually just speaking. I love going to amazing leadership conferences where they just talk at me. I'm taking notes and soaking it up, and I'm not interacting with anybody, and I love that. And then facilitating that far other end of the spectrum, I don't have any answers, right? Like technically, I'm just saying, if you said this thing, I'm going to write your words on our board here. What else do you all want? So I can facilitate strategic planning. And there's a consultancy piece that sometimes goes in there where you hire that strategic planning person to facilitate, but you also want them to share insights when they see it. Like, it sounds like you all are doing these things. Is this what you're saying? I think this might be more important. And then in great training like workshops, you want both. You want tell me the good stuff and give me space to talk about it and wrestle with it. So it's so tricky to have that clarity of what's being offered, particularly in something like an open Zoom class where some people are coming for the connection and some people are coming for the content. And it's tricky to have clear expectations about the format that you have, but really important. Like, now I got to go write a new chapter in my book.
No, and you spoke about this. That's why actually doing the slide deck helps prepare. What is the purpose here? And how am I building out those questions in this session? How am I strategizing the strategy behind it?
And we know, like, from adult learning theory and from neuroscience, curiosity is huge. If you can tap into people's curiosity, they lean in because when they're curious, we want to know the answer. Adults in general want our experiences to be valued. So if you show up to a leadership Zoom or workshop and I start speaking at you, something in most adults stirs and says, I have some insight too. Like, I have experience with this too. So creating some space to say, before I share what I know as a trainer that I've studied, I acknowledge that you have some of those great experiences and I want to give you opportunity to bring those up together. So if I do send you to a breakout room, it's not going to be the only thing you do today, but here's why I'm doing it. Because I want you to think about what's your experience, how's it different from somebody else's, and what are you curious about before we come back and I'll share some of the things and we can chat through what you're curious about. I think explaining the why when we send people into their breakout rooms or small group discussions is a big piece of getting the buy-in.
Is there anything else you want to talk about or that I haven't asked?
This one's too deep, so it might get cut out of our podcast. But I have been appreciating over the last few months concepts of like limiting beliefs and false identities that we believe about ourselves, and like you're like, another hour in this podcast with leadership. I did this with a group recently. Part of their workshop was, it's so personal and it's so reflective. I asked them not to share, but to take their initial reflection into the week to see what they noticed. What are some of their limiting beliefs, stories they tell themselves about leadership and choices they make at work. For me, recently doing that deep work to sit and reflect and be careful about that and notice it. I came to appreciate that I had, this was maybe like 3 to 6 months ago, but I love to lead. Like, the dream is an executive position, right? Like, long term, I'm loving the season I'm in. I wouldn't change a thing. To make those difficult decisions and be able to set strategy and vision and be for people at the same time just sounds awesome. And I've gotten to watch great people do that. but I have had something under the surface telling me if I want that, it's selfish and I will become bossy. And so just even like saying it out loud on a walk with my husband is like, those feel dumb when you say them out loud. Like there's incredible people I know in great leadership roles who are incredibly humble and they still ask questions while making difficult decisions, but they listen to their people. Like, it's silly, but it was very much under the surface. It was a limiting belief on that future dream kind of position. So now I'm all in on this like deep work reflection for people to just say, what might be holding you back that you aren't paying attention to? So big vulnerable questions that you have on your willing to share. I had to think about it for like a week, so it's not really fair that I'm putting you on the spot.
No. So I have actually been working through this in my writing and just being in the space of being considered a creative. I had to dig way deep of where did this come from? And it started like 7th grade that I got geared towards athletics as opposed to creative endeavors, which fine. I was successful, did great, no regrets there, but it shut down the creative side of things. And so as I'm trying to reopen that, and then I hit roadblocks, I come up against a wall or the comparison trap of I read someone else's work or someone else has already written this kind of thing, then the limiting belief of, see, you're not a creative, you're not a writer, this isn't the space for you, you're supposed to be a CEO, you are the bossy person, you're supposed to be over there, not actually doing what brought you joy then and what brings you joy now. And so the difference of you can be good at something and not enjoy it, as opposed to, well, I'm not great at this, but I actually love it. So let me work and get better.
Yeah. And that thing that you use that like executive example, you were in that season and made a tremendous impact. So you maybe never lit you up, I don't know, but even if it did, it's okay if that had a shelf life. And now there's a new season, something different that lights you up. You are creative. Also, you just said you're supposed to be in that CEO, which word I want. A synonym for that is should, like I should be in that CEO position. And this will be in the second book on questions, but should is like one of the most useless words that we have that pervades our language. So in your example, that should is just a judgment that you're placing on something, right? That it's not true that that's the value, that you are a creative and your gut says this is where you're happy. So like there isn't a should. There's just not. Yeah, I can talk about shoulds in leadership. That's my future TED Talk. Whenever I hear that I'm supposed to or I should, it's like, oh, let's catch that belief.
We, in the rooms, we call it shoulding on ourselves. Yes. And what you actually led with, though, is saying it out loud. Because I can write about it all day. I can recognize the thought patterns in my journaling. But until you say it out loud to your husband, say it in a group, say it
on a podcast.
On a podcast. Sure. Yes. Until you actually put it out there, then you diminish all of the power of it and you go, yeah, that does sound ridiculous.
And we're right back to why we're meant to be in community, right? Like you can't do that for yourself. You have to have someone else in the conversation with you. Yeah. Because we're just going to debunk all that belief of not being a creative. Like I know as soon as you heard it, you felt that, but man, you are writing and you are infographing and you are posting and you are podcasting. Like everything is creative work. My brother did that the other day. He has run half marathons. He runs consistently. Just very impressive to me. And he was like, I'm not a runner. Like, we're going to pause for a second. What? He's like, yeah, I just don't enjoy it. And like, I do it because there should be something hard in my life that I don't want to do, but I have a discipline to do it. And I was like, all of that's fine, but the fact that you run it almost every day and have run a half marathon means you are a runner. Like, you are a creative. I mean,
this has actually been my training strand for the last 6 months, that this is what I love to train on, is the identity and how we refer to ourselves and the language around that then gives other people either that confidence or that belief. So it dictates how other people see you. If you show up to something and you're like, well, I'm just a mom and I'm just a teacher. I use those examples because obviously those are two that get downplayed in society that are like the biggest, most impactful jobs in the world. But it's how you phrase it and say, I'm the CEO of my household, or I'm a educator that empowers 150 lives a year. It's the language you use around it. So getting people to reflect on when I introduce myself or my speaker bios, those kind of things, how are you referring to yourself? That then leads to that confidence in that you don't need the resume or the credentials up there because they see, yeah, you are a change agent and a catalyst of hope and all these things. It's the power of the language. So
that, and underneath that is the belief about those words. So, I mean, you and I both came up through education. I remember as an 8th grade teacher in Tucson, Arizona, like, I loved being a teacher. Loved it. Loved my kids, I loved my school. And I don't think I ever said I'm just a teacher because I knew how much work it was and what a calling it was. And that I was good at it. Like, maybe not my first year. Sorry for those kids that had to help me figure it out. So, like, even if I said I'm a teacher, my belief underneath that statement was really great for me. But the person next to me saying, oh, I'm just a teacher, their belief is it's a lesser profession, it's not as worthy, whatever that like subconscious changes what the words mean. So I love actually changing the words like you're coaching people to do, because then you're telling yourself that reframing. Also digging a little deeper, like, believe the word. Like, you got to
yeah,
believe the words.
it's showing up with conviction and confidence. And if not, what's driving that? What's underneath it?
Good. I know, I call them self-mantras, but kind of those identity statements of there are leaders and authors I've read who have their lists that they read every day or redo it maybe every year, or maybe just keep the same list, but they make them as if they're already true, even if they're not. So like if you wanted to be a keynote speaker, but you're not, you say like, I am dynamic speaker. And you're telling yourself that because you believe that about yourself. You might not be there yet officially, but I am someone who asks great questions. I am someone who listens to understand who you want to be as if it's already true as an identity statement or a self mantra. So I love that practice for people. I've heard a lot of leaders do it, but I found it really helpful even in just season in my life where I wasn't doing a ton of leadership. So then to level it up, what you're describing, to choose the words more intentionally.
That
You
the
know, like some of those things that stir
dynamic,
you.
powerful words. Yes. So do you want me to tell you where this came from? You and I both like people to ask better questions and the power of questions, but we also know that that's not how society operates. And so I was in this transitional phase of life. I had left public education, hadn't started my LLC, hadn't really hung my shingle out yet in consulting, all those things. It was that liminal space of I'm not 100% sure, meaning I didn't have the belief and the confidence of how to identify and show up in places. So people would ask, here you are, and you're getting introduced. And it's like, I used to refer to myself as Amanda Yance, executive director of third largest district in Oklahoma. So people either knew that was a really big title, right? So they knew, or they knew the district. So they maybe didn't understand the title, but they knew the district, especially if they were Oklahoma. That's all you needed to say, and that carried weight. So they knew it was important, or they just knew it sounded important, so they went along with it. But when you no longer have that title, you're just Amanda. So then you get back to that just, and how do you write a speaker bio or a workshop description? What language do you use? And I was lost. I was really lost for a couple of months. I think it just held me back from moving forward. It was honestly the first thing that I knew I could go back to was I'm a sober, dignified woman. Then I could go back to I'm a sober, dignified creative, public speaker, freelance writer. Our friend Ebrion Davis, who also sits on my board of directors, was
And
like,
mine. I don't know if she knows that.
yes. And she said, you're a change agent. Thank you. I will take that. I will take this. I will take the actual positive things from people on my board of directors and reassimilate that identity formation, because that's someone that I hold in high regard who made that statement. Then I need to carry that in with me. All of that to say, it became very impactful to me in designing my business and the work I'm doing. I've now led 3 workshops on it, and people are like, we love this. So there are some reflective exercises and questions around how do you refer to yourself? And like you said, who do you want to be? How do you want to be portrayed? And the more you can clarify that language and draw it out, then the more you show up owning that.
I like the journey that you described too, because it's not like, this is my new thing. You know, you don't just have the awareness. You have to do the reflection and live in community and ask for feedback from your board of directors and what do you see and what am I known for? What do you come to me for? Digging through, and even within that process to say, yeah, I don't feel like I've got it yet, but I know it's sober and dignified. We're going to start there because those are important to me and they're a really great part of my story. And we had this conversation at lunch recently. I love that sober is part of that for you, because I think it's this thing we don't talk about enough. And there's lots of things like that probably in our lives. There's lots of things that we don't talk about because they're uncomfortable, we don't know how they'll make people feel, and they're important. And other people are on that journey, and other people are curious about that journey, and they're it's part of your journey. So I just love the vulnerability and strength in choosing words like that matter to you, that aren't just the fluffy like Chat GPT came up with this fancy word.
Yeah, Chat GPT can't write that, nor can it own my experience of getting sober or everything you go through. They're not going to be able to write that book, I can tell you.
Wait, that's why they need your book. Also, you mentioned that like comparison is the thief of joy sometimes. I have appreciated, I don't even know who it was, at a leadership conference 2 years ago, one of the speakers was talking about somebody needs your story. Whatever it is that you feel that stirring to create, it isn't for the world. Someone in the world needs it. So that was freeing to me to say, I'm going to enjoy the creative process and I want to share this. And it's okay if it's not whatever the New York Times bestseller, but it's going to bless somebody. And that's the end goal, is to be of service. So somebody needs your story.
2 things on that. One, our friend, Chris Culver, has helped me so much in just one person. And it's so true, because if after everything I've done, be it a workshop, a training, a podcast, a blog, just one person, maybe it didn't take off and get the downloads or the likes or the subscribes, but all it took was one person saying, that episode really impacted me. That totally spoke to me. And that's all I need to keep me going and to keep me coming back and to keep me doing this work. That's been important. The other thing being, for me, it's very important to share my sobriety experiences, because I think as you and I have talked, I don't fit the mold of what people think someone with a substance abuse problem looks like or performs like. If people that I respect had not been verbal and vocal before me, I don't think I would be this far in the journey. I think it is super important to share those experiences. And some people are like, I just think it's going to be a stigma. It goes back to core values. If someone has a problem with it, it's not an organization that I want to work in.
And you're not the right for them.
I'm not. Yeah.
And a friend just told me, like, not everyone is for you. You're not for everyone. That's trainers, as consultants, as coaches, at any whatever it is. That's okay. That's not the right fit of that particular organization. So my hope is the people who within know that they show up as just like, this is who I am and this is the story and this is what that I'm wrestling with, and this is what I have that is uniquely me that might be a benefit to somebody to share, or I got to process this in the community. Because that's what I feel so thankful that I get to do with you, like to be able to say, this happened, but I need help getting better perspective on this, or I'm stuck on this thing, and we coach each other up.
Yes, it's so important. I think it's also important for people to be open and receptive, because finding those people are not necessarily where you think they're going to be.
I've appreciated that in your like podcast prep form. What might we want to talk about? And just some of those simple questions. One of them, one very thoughtful question was any topic that we avoid, and I loved that instantly. I thought because it's Amanda, and I think we have different perspectives on probably some big worldview things, maybe faith, but I feel like we could talk about anything, and I would love to know what you think, and you, I know, would reciprocate that, and we would still like each other at the end of the call. So it's also to be able to have that space with people where it's okay if you don't agree, but you're still curious and still see them as a valuable person. I just think it opens our worlds and our spheres and our community when we're able to have those friendships, and you are really precious in my life in that regard.
Thank you. As are you. I really appreciate that. And it's true because I try to bring different perspectives, different demographics and guests, because I don't want everyone to think like I do or mirror what I do. I want people to be able to take information and take people's experiences and training and then make meaning of what works for them. You have to assimilate your own identity and your own course of action, but that requires some level of discernment, but also critical thinking. And I really value you, obviously. I value your experiences. And so let me understand that, because then it makes me a better leader, a better trainer, a better rider, because it's not just my way, my view.
It's most organically when people are willing to be honest, like you are with that. I'm coming back to it's not the defining word for you, but like when you're able to say sober, dignified, this is why, and these are some of my experiences I'm open to talking about. Like I can say like transformed faith because of my vision disability, right? Like I can have those statements. So when we're able to be honest about some of those things that we feel are defining moments of our journey, and then still just love each other and be curious, like it's such a blessing. But that I think you open the door for that authenticity and vulnerability and connection because you go first in even just that tagline that you shared.
Kind of scary, but I want people to do better and get better and live differently, have a different understanding of people. I think sometimes that's hard for people to understand because I'll go, I don't want any of your icebreakers. I don't want any small talk. I don't want any of that crap. But then I really do care. It's just a deeper level. It's deeper. It looks different.
Yes.
Looks different.
Yes.
That I'm like, come on my podcast and tell all your stories.
Just unload on Amanda's psychology couch. Okay, I'm going to take us back up to levity because you just mentioned the vulnerability level and the icebreakers. The analogy that works for me is that some people come in, if you think of like pots of boiling water, pots of water, some people come into your workshop, they're already boiling. They're rolling boils, like vulnerable, ready, like you can ask me about my childhood trauma and I'll tell you. You know what I mean? But then you've got the people who are like, ice cold, no matter what you do, are not going to get to this rolling boil in a one-day workshop. And the goal isn't that we talk about our trauma, and that it's not that we everyone is holding hands at the end. It's just to recognize what can I do to help these people warm up organically, to have comfortable conversations that are meaningful, and how can I give these people space to connect while having some parameters about not telling their whole life story for the next 30 minutes at their round table. So people come at their different temperatures of water. And my job is to appreciate that and try to give everybody some space to just notice each other's temperatures.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I know that was a tangent from...
No, and I think it's also the temperature of the water, but also knowing you're planting the seed, because it may be 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years down the road when someone goes, I see it now, when it connects for them. And we can't force that. But we can plant the seed and then take the temperature.
Yeah. And make space for those different needs. Chad Littlefield has cards that a lot of trainers I know have purchased and they love for their workshops, and they're question cards for connection. And they do a really cool job of making space for vulnerability. So one question card might be, what's a challenge you're facing right now? So boiling pot of water might be like, my whole world is collapsing because our pipes just burst and my kid's moving out next week. And then cold pot of water might be like, there's a question that has potential for all kinds of connection, but you don't force people into like, tell me something deep. So I love just appreciating now questions that are open-ended but have space for different levels of vulnerability too. And as a podcast host, I think you probably are becoming very skilled at that, to be able to ask and have people open up without forcing them too deep too fast.
Yes, it's actually my favorite thing to do. That's what I say. I'm like, if I could just do this part all day, that would be my zone. You know, we've got to do some other things. So
A little bit other stuff too.
A little bit of other stuff in there. Oh, I'm like, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
It was so great. Thank you for listening to the Midlife Catalyst podcast. I'm grateful for Tami Shaw for giving her time and expertise to this 2-part podcast episode. If you liked what Tammy had to say, you can find her at positivestrategy.com. And remember, her book, Radically Simple Training, will be out and available this weekend on Amazon. In reflection, what areas of your life do you need to simplify? Where do you need to get radically clear and eliminate some distractions? What limiting beliefs are you holding on to that you need to release? What are those shoulds that are running through your head or buried deep inside of you that you need to release? One of the things I like to do is have 2 to 3 mantras for the week that I write out on a sticky note and I put on my computer desk, that I put on my bathroom mirror, and that I write out in my journal. So every place I go, I see them and I'm reminded of the positives and the areas to hold on to. Those are just some easy, quick, simple strategies to get your mindset going in the right direction to believe that whatever it is that you're hoping to achieve, maybe it's writing a book, starting a podcast, applying for your dream job, those things can happen. Remember, AI can do a lot, but it cannot write your story. Be the author of your own narrative. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure and leave a like, a comment, or a review wherever you watch or listen to the podcast. And if you want more information or resources from today, visit my Substack, amandayance.substack.com, or go to midlifecatalyst.net to see the show notes for the resources and references. As always, I'm Amanda Yance, and I'm grateful for you listening to the Midlife Catalyst podcast.